Ladies and gentlemen, we have the official 1.0 version of our Buffalo Bills mock draft on today's episode of the Mafia Report, a Buffalo Bills podcast. Shout out to everybody that is currently joining me on YouTube during my live stream. As many of you know, I conduct all of these episodes live on YouTube, and then afterwards, I ultimately end up posting them on Spotify and anywhere you listen to podcasts. So regardless of where you are tuning in, I appreciate you for regularly making this a part of your daily routine. I am live Monday through Friday and an occasional surprise episode on the weekends. So it's very important that if you are vibing with the content over here, please consider following and also turn on those bell notifications, folks. And more importantly, smash that like button. Easiest way to propel this out to the algorithm so more hungry Bills fans can get into this. But yeah, guys, listen, I feel like we have beaten a dead horse as far as top 30 visits for the Buffalo Bills, really analyzing specific prospects. And I feel that we have all come to the conclusion, and or maybe it's more of a manifestation type situation, that we are hoping Brandon Beane / the front office slightly trades up. Several of us have been discussing trade up opportunities in the second round as well, trying to finesse ways into the third round. So we are going to do a live mock draft on PFF. And maybe we could also do one on the Pro Football Network, since both of them are wonderful platforms, but some of the results tend to vary. But I'm super excited to knock into this. Now, folks, as a reminder, how my episodes are structured is that I yap for about 15 to 20 minutes on the specific topic. And then afterwards, I end up making a transition over to my live chat right over on YouTube, where they control the full conversation in a Q&A segment. So I'm very excited to transition over there eventually. Again, if you are listening on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts, highly recommend you come find me over on YouTube. Dan Mitchell. Just search Dan Mitchell and you will notice the same little animated cartoon head that you are all too familiar with. But the PFF mock draft simulator, let's go ahead and make sure that the fillers are up to date. Public versus PFF board. I think I'm going to slightly shift this a little closer to PFF, but more with a public stance. And then I will also go with care for positional value. I really like where that is already set. Draft for needs, and then randomness. I feel like this is good. And also we'll make this a slow version for the mock draft. 7 rounds today, folks. Let's get into it. Without further ado, we are starting the mock draft. Now, again, as this starts to roll, I think that there are only a couple of spots where Buffalo could potentially trade up. The absolute highest, in my opinion, and this is just judging off of Brandon Beane's previous behavior, is 19 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They certainly need some picks. Same thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21 and the Minnesota Vikings at 24. I think all of those teams have a lot to gain since they are limited in the picks department. And I think that they could be potential partners. But let's talk about how the board is going to fall for us here. What I'm going to do is I am going to make a rule here that my big board is going to be Kenneth Grant, number 1. As many of us know, he is my dream pick in this overall draft. Then afterwards, and I think a lot of you guys might think that this is crazy, I'd probably go Will Johnson, number 2. Then I would go Nick Emenwari, safety out of South Carolina, as far as a true first-round talent. Then afterwards, we shall see how the board falls. But the PFF mock draft has begun now, as I am assuming Cam Ward goes first overall to the Tennessee Titans. Travis Hunter goes to the Cleveland Browns. The Giants select Abdul Carter. The Patriots select Will Campbell, tackle out of LSU. Jags take Ashton Genty. He is really flying up boards, isn't he? First corner is taken off the board by the Raiders at Jahdae Barron. Armand Membu, Tyler Warren, 9th overall pick, Mason Graham, defensive lineman. The Chicago Bears select Victoria McMillan. San Francisco, first, one of the guys on our big board is gone. Will Johnson, corner out of Michigan. It's left up for debate. It's clear I do believe that Jahdae Barron will be the first corner taking off of the board. And as many of you know, I am a Will Johnson guy. I think that he is the perfect scheme fit for the Buffalo Bills. But we are seeing so many different mock drafts from various NFL personalities that has this guy falling as soon as pick 11. Sometimes I've seen pick 10 directly over to the Chicago Bears. And sometimes I've seen him fall all the way to 19. But unfortunately, on this mock draft scenario, he is now off the board. So one guy on our big board is gone. We're still looking for Kenneth Grant. We're also still looking for Nick Emenwari. Let's see what the Buffalo Bills could potentially do. The Dallas Cowboys are on the clock, and they select Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. The Miami Dolphins select Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. Mike Green goes to the Indianapolis Colts. Matthew Golden is off of the board with the Atlanta Falcons. Donovan Ezeruku is off of the board as well. Shamar Stewart goes to the Bengals at 17. I am going to trade because you want to know why? I'm looking at this board right now, folks, and we have just locked in with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19. So I am about to be aggressive on this mock draft 1.0 because I'm looking at everything and I still see our boy Kenneth Grant. I still see Emenwari is potentially on the board. And why Tampa Bay would be interested in trading with the Buffalo Bills in the first place. We have a copious amount of draft selections, but at the same time, we have a very limited amount of space that could fill our roster in 2025. Where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, on the other hand, are just sitting at 6 picks. So what am I going to do? I'm going to ask for 19. I'm going to do a pick swap in the first. And then I think I'm also going to give them an additional second-round pick. I think that will get it done. The 62nd overall. So the 30th, 62nd overall. Maybe Buffalo just wants to do a pick swap, and then maybe we want to give them a third round in 2026. Second round in 2026, I suppose that we could do. We could still, yeah, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 19th overall pick, we give them our 30. And then we are also walking away with a second round pick in 2026. And we are handing that to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. According to PFF, they will accept that. Let's offer this trade. Bang. Look at this, folks. Look at this. So, how the board has fallen thus far. Top prospects, Luther Burden III, as many of us know, I had him as one of the top 5 wide receiver prospects in this draft. He's number 2. Say that you were to ask me. Number 1 is Matthew Golden. And then we also have James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee. And then look at that. We have our boy Kenneth Grant, 17th overall. He's been an interesting prospect. I have seen quite a few mocks where he has gone or he has fallen as far as 30 for the Buffalo Bills. But guys, I am not convinced about this. He's more than likely going to go, I would say, between 19 and 23 based off of where specific teams are looking for. I could see the Broncos going for him. I could also see the Chargers going for him. I could definitely see, let's see. Could certainly see the Chiefs going for him if necessary. So without further ado, the Buffalo Bills have traded up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they have selected Kenneth Grant. All right. So now we need to start talking about second-round talent here. What could the Buffalo Bills potentially do for some second-round talent? Corner is very necessary. In fact, I would argue that that is the second highest need for us. We saw Walter Nolan go all the way to the Minnesota Vikings. Gray Zabel goes to the Texans. Colson Loveland, tight end for the LA Rams. The Ravens select James Pierce Jr. The Lions select Omarion Hampton. Interesting. Washington Commanders get a Emeka Egbuka. Nick Scorton goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the pick they got from us. Derek Harmon goes to Kansas City. Tyler Booker goes to the Eagles. And Shedeur Sanders falls all the way to the second round to the Cleveland Browns. The Tennessee Titans, the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock. Nick Emenwari is off of the board. Let me see who else might be intriguing. I'm going to pause right here because I'm thinking of a couple of moves that we could potentially make. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at some corners that we could potentially select because you know what? Trading up in the second has been something that we have discussed for quite some time. If we're trying to get, right, a Nick Emenwari, and in hindsight, I probably should have paused this draft a bit earlier. So we could have grabbed him perhaps with Tennessee or something where we could have walked away with an Emenwari at the safety position. But CB2 is still very much available at this point. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up the draft board so I have a good understanding. One of my biggest gripes with PFF's mock draft simulator is while you are drafting, it does not show the players available. Something I wish PFF would be able to fix. However, I'm going to take a look and make an estimate and see who has come off of the board thus far as players that we could be looking for. Hunter has been gone. Barron has been gone. Will Johnson has been gone. I want to say Trey Amos is still up there. I'm going to double check. He has not been selected. The 40th overall pick, I'm going to go and attempt right here, folks, a trade with the New Orleans Saints. So we could slightly trade up here and select our good friend Trey Amos as a CB2 for this team. So we are going to ask for the 40th overall pick. We are going to give them the 56th overall pick in a direct pick swap. And then I'm also going to include the comp pick we received from Chicago. And I'm also going to send over 132. So the Buffalo Bills here would have the 40th overall pick, 56, a total pick swap in the second round. And then we're also sending over the 109th and 132nd. So we still maintain another second round pick. And we're walking away with a lot of potential selections that likely wouldn't even make the team in the first place. I'm going to offer the trade to the New Orleans Saints. I'll try one more time. Boom. The Buffalo Bills are here at 40. All right. So I'm looking at some options here. And this is beautiful, guys. Listen, a lot of us love Trey Amos. 85.6 PFF grade in 2024. His run defense for a corner stands out. Coverage grade out of this world. Zone and man corner excels in both. 3 interceptions in 2024. We all know this guy. 6'1", 190 pounds. All 6'1", 190 pounds of Trey Amos. Welcome to the Buffalo Bills. And you know what? I'm feeling this right now. So far, guys, as we can see, we traded up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first to round 1, pick 19th overall with Kenneth Grant. And then we traded up with the New Orleans Saints in the second round to select our CB2 of the future, many of us are very excited about this overall pick. Trey Amos, corner Mississippi, was the second round selection. Now, I'm going to remain patient, and I'm not going to do anything with our actual second round pick and see how the board falls. And I'll tell you what, I am so glad that we decided to trade up for our CB2 because I have seen Maxwell Hairston. I have seen Azarie Thomas. I'm pretty sure I saw Darian Porter go off of the clock. I was a bit distracted looking at the big board. However, I think trading up slightly for a CB2 that makes sense was the right move. Man, you know what? Move over, Brandon Beane. Dan Mitchell has entered the chat. All right. 62nd overall. And this is how I look at it. I'm not planning on trading down. I can take a look. Las Vegas is intrigued by getting us down into the third. We already had a second round pick. We don't have a third round pick. I think I would be interested. Actually, let me take a look at the board. So we're at the 62nd overall. Shamar Turner. You have Omar Norman Lott, who is another defensive tackle that I find interesting. I do believe that the Buffalo Bills certainly need to double dip at the defensive tackle position. Same thing with Joshua Farmer. A lot of guys here. Trey Harris. I'm looking around here. We have Jalen Royals, who's also intriguing, but we would need to get into the third round in order to achieve that. I'm not sure if I'm going to reach that far yet Shamar, you have Omar Norman Lott for a double dip at the defensive tackle position. You have Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina, edge rusher, who some of us are certainly high on. He could be an option. You have Josiah Stewart out of Michigan. I'll tell you what. I think I'm interested. Slightly trading down. I'm going to give them 62. And then I will also end up taking 108 from these guys. And I will give them 170. I will offer the trade. I am currently trading down, folks, with the Las Vegas Raiders. I just didn't like the way that the board was looking. We are going to offer it. Trade was accepted. And we pick here in just a couple of minutes. As the draft continues, what did Las Vegas want that bad? They wanted Ursary, tackle out of Minnesota. You have Trayvon Henderson from Kansas City. Shamar Turner goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. CJ West goes to the New York Giants. The Chiefs select Kyle Kennard, edge rusher. The Cleveland Browns select Ozzie Trapilo, a tackle out of Boston College. So here we are sitting at pick 68. And you know what? I think it might be time for me to take a look at what the fans and my homies in the live chat have to say. As a recap, in case any of you guys have just tuned in, we traded up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for Kenneth Grant, the 19th overall pick. As we know, I think pound for pound, the best one-tech defensive tackle in the draft. I think about 85% of Bills Mafia would be thrilled with this. And then we also traded up slightly in the second round so that we could select Trey Amos CB2 on the outside. We traded down with the Las Vegas Raiders to receive a third-round pick, only about 5 picks in total. So this is what we are looking at. We could potentially double dip and select Omar Norman Lott. We could also double dip and select Alfred Collins at the interior defensive tackle position. I could really reach because there are a lot of wide receivers that I really, really like here. Wide receiver, right? You have Jalen Royals, who many of you know that I'm very, very high on. You do have Isaiah Bond, which I could potentially wait on for 109th overall. You have Kyle Williams at 160. Many of you guys know that I'm a big Kyle Williams guy. We could do this slightly. Chat, what do you think that I should do? We have Colt coming in, and he thinks that we should go Omar Norman Lott. Perhaps we could go Omar Norman Lott. He certainly would be a depth piece. I'll tell you what, he has a lot left to contribute to an NFL team. Highly productive in a very high rotation defensive line. You have Kenneth Grant already on this squad. Double dipping is certainly something we need to. So, Spin's talking about let's go punter. I promise you, by the end of this video, I will draft a punter for Spin because he has been pounding the table for it, and we're going to get it done. But I think this is the direction that I am going to based off of the board. You do have Josiah Stewart. He's not my favorite. He could be the guy. 92.3 pass rush grade, true pass set rush grade, 6'1", 245 pounds. He's not necessarily big in the size department, which I could kind of be afraid of. I'm going to take a look at some of the edge rushers that are left available on. I do like Olu out of UCLA. He could potentially be a guy that we go for as well. I particularly like this. Savion Jones. Here's the thing. Sometimes based off of positions of need, I do look at the Buffalo Bills' current roster. And while we just ended up extending Gregory Rousseau, we have Joey Bosa. So we can go on ahead and just assume, of course, assuming that Joey Bosa can stay healthy, as I suppose, which many of us would say would be unrealistic, but let's hope for the best. I think those two are going to be dominating the snaps. And then you have AJ Epinesa as well, who has been a rotational piece for us. And then you also have Javon Solomon, who I believe is a dude, right? So If I was the GM here, I would probably end up just throwing a dart at an edge rusher later in the draft. We are already in the third round right here. And worst case scenario, an edge rusher is the number one thing that we look for in 2025. Interior, I think, was our biggest issue. So I don't like Josiah Stewart. He's not a fit for us. He's significantly undersized. You have Jordan Birch out of Oregon, a 2.9% run stop rate, 15.7% pass rush, 6'6", 295 pounds. Birch is a high potential player with athletic and physical gifts you can't teach. After finding his sweet spot in size and body composition, he can play in both odd and even fronts, but projects best as a 4-3 defensive end. If he continues to master more pass rush moves and hand usage, he can be a starter and a contributing player. He's from Columbia, South Carolina. He is a potential guy. Jordan Birch at 73. He's standing out to me right here. We could also take a look at some of the defensive tackles as well, because again, I do want to double dip at this position. Alfred Collins, I like Alfred Collins. Joshua Farmer is late. You have Jordan Phillips. You have Deion Walker at 106. So many things, but I am going to actually go a bit different. Give me some size right here. 6'6", 295 pounds. That is a big edge rusher. He's got to be a power guy. I'll tell you what. I will tell you what, folks. I think Omar Norman-Lott's the guy. I feel like Omar Norman-Lott is the guy. I completely took you down a rabbit hole there. And folks, if you are listening on audio, I have been having the conversation with quite a few of our friends here. Now, and of course, they were distracting me, but Omar Norman-Lott just so happened to be the guy. Now, what I do kind of want to look at is there is a receiver that I would really like to look at, and that's a Jalen Royals, but I have a feeling he's about to be off of the board momentarily. And the Buffalo Bills' next pick is not until 108. We saw Alfred Collins go off of the board. And guys, just for a recap thus far, first move the Buffalo Bills did, we drafted Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle from Michigan. Hands down the best one tech that we have at the position. Second round, we selected Trey Amos, CB2, out of Ole Miss. Second round pick, we traded down with the Las Vegas Raiders into the third and selected Omar Norman-Lott. Double dip to the defensive tackle position. So now what do we need here? I'd probably say that a safety / a wide receiver, maybe an edge rusher, might be intriguing. Let's take a look. Let's take a look and see what Buffalo can walk away with here. Savion Williams, wide receiver, ends up falling to the Minnesota Vikings. You have the New York Giants at Devin Neal. The San Francisco 49ers select Anthony Belton. Harold Fannin goes to the LA Rams. RJ Harvey goes to the Detroit Lions. Ashton Glott goes to the Tennessee Titans. Ransom, safety, goes to the Cleveland Browns. Deion Walker, big defensive tackle, goes to the New York Giants. And Sebastian Castro is now off of the board. So let's take a look at a couple of options here. Ooh. All right. So the Buffalo Bills are currently at pick 108. We are currently at pick 108, folks. And there's one that I think many of you want to see come to fruition. We have Olu. All right. We have Olu, a UCLA edge rusher. And many are saying that PFF is disrespecting this prospect and to even suggest that he would be going in the fourth round, which we currently are at, would be almost disrespectful by itself. We have that is not necessary. We have Kobe Bryant, corner, but there's no need to double dip at the position, at least this early. So right now it is between two players for me. You have Isaiah Bond, one of the fastest wide receivers in the NFL, an ex-wide receiver, if you will. His world-class speed will be coveted, likely in the top 50, but needs to continue to grow as a receiver, not just a fast player, to remain on the field for more than vertical play calls. He's just a vertical guy, right? Is he the guy that we want to add to this roster? 5 touchdowns in 2024. Struggled while he was at Alabama. I'll tell you what, folks. I'm not sure what it is, but for some reason, I have been against Texas wide receivers for the past 2 years. I don't know why. Just something about them. A risk that I'm not particularly wanting to make here. So what I'm going to do, I am going to select Olu with Oladejo out of UCLA, edge rusher, 7 sacks in 2024. Welcome to the Buffalo Bills. 6'3", 250 pounds. Welcome to our squad. Now, some of us are thinking about, oh my God, Dan, Isaiah Bond. We needed Isaiah Bond. What are we talking about? Let me tell you what. I have a prospect that is just as fast and is a lot more than just a gimmicky wide receiver. Although that Joe Brady, many would argue, does tend to go for the gimmick wide receivers. He just wants them to live up to our gimmick, if you will. But I'm going to be patient and wait for the guy that I really, really would like. Edge, linebacker, corner. Some people are saying we need a linebacker. Bossa could be interesting. I'm not even sure if Bossa is still sort of on the board, but I'm going to go wide receiver next, but I'm going to wait. Have Noah Williams went to the Green Bay Packers. Torrey Horton goes to Colorado State. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon goes to the LA Rams. The Ravens are selecting Ahmad Hassien, edge rusher out of Boise State. Barrett Carter. J.J. Puigs goes to the Saints. Jaden Blue goes to the New Orleans Saints. The Kansas City Chiefs go with Byshell Tootin. Savion Jones goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Folks, we are dangerously approaching. We are dangerously approaching the 5th round. And we are officially here. Our next pick is at 169. And I got to tell you, I have a good feeling I'm going to trade up here soon. Boom! My God, folks. I was so frustrated because I was about to trade up and select Kyle Williams. And the New York Jets ultimately ended up stealing him right under my nose. But let's take a look at what we could do here. In fact, you know what? I'm going to see what the Panthers want to do because I have another wide receiver that could potentially be a boom/a bust for this team. Don't worry, folks. I have a damn arsenal ahead of me here. Maybe we'll give him 206. How about that? So the Panthers, we are trading up to 146, and we are giving them 169 and 206. I am going to offer the trade, and the Buffalo Bills, look at that, are on the board. Now, we have somebody who I do like. Ooh. I think I might wait. Spoiler alert, who I am now targeting is going to be Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. And this was my last case scenario. Blazing speed, not enough targets, an absolute dog that I loved. We had 6 touchdowns. First look when you take a look at him. Scouting summary coming soon from this guy. I promise you, we would absolutely love that. That and Ty Felton, he could potentially be a guy that we look for. 6'2", 186 pounds. Felton was featured wide out in Maryland's offense in 2024. And you look at what he can put together. 9 touchdowns after the fact. Fast guy, could potentially go here. But who I'm going to be targeting is Dante Thornton Jr., who's going to be a bit further into the later rounds by itself. But now I kind of want to take a look at some oh my God. With this play, I'm looking at safety. And safety, I see one of my personal favorite prospects in the 5th round that excels in coverage. Somebody who I think really will be a day one contributor and or will be a guy that can really lock down that deep middle of the field. He's aggressive. He's a great tackler. He's coming out of the SEC, out of Oklahoma. And that's Billy Bowman. And I also want to take a look at linebacker here. We have a Kobe King. I feel like when it comes into linebacker, I am not have Danny Stutzman as well, who is intriguing. Solid run defender. His pass rush grade isn't all that bad. Stutzman is interesting. But with that being said, I feel like the only pick right here for me has to be Billy Bowman Jr. Since Kyle Williams was ripped right from our hearts, folks. Right from our hearts. But so far, as the Buffalo Bills continue on with this draft class, let's do a summary. And let me know your thoughts here. First pick, we traded up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We selected Kenneth Grant. Second pick, we traded up into the 2nd round, and we selected Trey Amos, CB2. We double dipped at the defensive tackle position by trading down with the Las Vegas Raiders, selecting Omar Norman-Lott. 4th round, we ended up selecting Olu, a edge rusher out of UCLA. And our next 5th round pick, we selected Billy Bowman Jr., safety out of Oklahoma. Somebody I am specifically very, very high on. Let's take a look. Let's take a look and see how this board is falling. And folks, as you are coming in, please do me a favor. Smash that like button if you haven't had an opportunity of doing so already. And subscribe to the channel and turn on bell notifications so you can also be a part of our live chat community. For those of you that are listening on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, please do me a favor, all right? And leave a rating and review if you are vibing with what we're doing over here. Man, this is solid. All right, anyway. Now the Buffalo Bills are at 173. And there's one wide receiver that I particularly really like. I don't think PFF is going to like that I'm selecting this guy, but we can take a look. You have Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech. Not particularly a guy that is standing out to me. What I'm looking for is speed. So what really stands out to me is Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. In case anybody is wondering how fast he is. He currently ran a 4.340. So for those of you that were like, oh, we should have ended up getting Isaiah Bond. This guy is faster. He ran a 4.340. He is 6'5", 214 pounds, folks. That is probably one of the craziest things that I have ever seen. Somebody that big that runs that insane. That being said, the 4.340, 6'5", and let me double check his weight real fast. 214-pound wide receiver out of the University of Tennessee, Dante Thornton Jr. Welcome to the Buffalo Bills. And now, folks, we only have one more pick, and that is going to be in the 5th round. And you know what? So my buddy Spin is in the chat right now. So let me tell you what I would have done if Spin wasn't in the chat. Because if Spin wasn't in the chat, then I more than likely would have looked into perhaps a potential running back replacement for James Cook. I could have also shot or rolled the dice on one of these linebackers as well, such as Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. But my good friend Spin may disown me if I do not select a punter. And the best punter that we have right here, baby, is Jeremy Crawshaw. Jeremy Crawshaw out of the University of Florida. The best punter on the board. We could potentially go this route. Although his PFF rank is 337. Spin, I am so sorry, but just convince yourself that I took a punter with a 6th round pick, our final pick of the draft. If I was a gambling man, this is what I am doing. I am taking Danny Stutzman, linebacker, out of Oklahoma. His coverage grade is not nearly as good as I would like. I think Cody Lindenberg would probably be a better option because we know that Sean McDermott loves his guys that are at least decent in coverage. And so we already have a Dorian Williams that has his struggles in coverage. I'm going to take Cody Lindenberg out of Minnesota. And that right there, folks, is indeed the Buffalo Bills mock drafts. Let's go through it together and let's discuss. Spin, again, my sincere liar. He's mad at me. He's going to disown me. I just couldn't. I just couldn't, Spin. I'm sorry, man. Listen, I know that I went back on what I said. Like, again, this shenanigans at its finest. Spin, I'm sorry, man. Listen, say that we still had a 7th round pick. I feel like we'd be okay. But, all right, ladies and gentlemen, let's just go on ahead and run. Dan, you deserve the liar comment, bro. I do, man. Listen, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I just couldn't. I couldn't. And don't sleep on Kamara either. Like, dude was like top 5, I think, with average punts. He's okay. I do know that the bum that we brought in a couple of weeks ago, or days ago, rather, he has not a shot in the gun range. But Spin, so I'll figure out how to make it up to you, man. I will figure out how to make it up to you. All right, man. Let's take a look at some of these super chats. Dan, man, may 3 pounds of Saleen's hot dogs appear on your doorstep. Dude, you know what? That is a beautiful Buffalo blessing. In fact, you know what, dude? I would love to have like a little sign that I could hang like right in my kitchen. You know what I mean? It's sort of like an Irish blessing, but it's a Buffalo blessing. You know what I mean? I like that. Latham Raysom's safety out of Ohio State. So, folks, as I reminded everybody, this is the point of the show where I end up transitioning exclusively over to the live chat for a Q&A segment. So for those of you listening on podcasts, highly recommend that you come on over to YouTube, and you can find my YouTube channel just by saying my name, Dan Mitchell. And you can, too, be a part of my live chat community. But anyway, let's do a brief recap of what the Buffalo Bills ultimately ended up doing. So this hypothetical Brandon Beane and Buffalo Bills front office traded up in the first round with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got pick number 19, and we gave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the 30th overall pick and a 2026 second round. I was fine with that because we still ultimately ended up having a second round to play with. Next up, we selected Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman, best one-tech defensive tackle in the draft, if I were to be honest with you. Next up, the Buffalo Bills. We ended up trading up again in the second round, this time with the New Orleans Saints. We received the 40th overall pick and gave away the 56th overall pick, the 109th, and the 132nd. So we did a pick swap in the second, and we shoved off 2 of our 4th round picks, but we selected Trey Amos with that, and I was absolutely thrilled. Next up, we ended up trading down with the Las Vegas Raiders with our second round pick so that we can get into the 3rd. And might I say, I think this worked out beautifully. Where the Raiders received our 62nd and we received their 68th, which was into the 3rd round. And we also received their 4th round 108, where we ended up giving them a 5th round as well. So we got back into the 4th, which was ideal. With that, we selected Omar Norman-Lott, doubled down on the defensive tackle position. The 4th round that we selected by trading down with the Las Vegas Raiders, we selected Olu Oladejo, an edge rusher out of UCLA, who many are very high on, and many would probably tell you there's no way on God's green earth, that he will fall into the 4th round, but it is a mock draft simulator for a reason. And then we ultimately ended up trading up again after the New York Jets broke my heart and selected Kyle Williams, my favorite late round wide receiver prospect. And the Buffalo Bills received 146, and the Carolina Panthers got 169th overall pick and the 206th. With that move, we selected Billy Bowman Jr., safety out of Oklahoma. He excels in coverage. And then in the 5th round, we selected Dante Thornton Jr., a wide receiver out of Tennessee. Don't worry about PFF's grade here. This guy is an absolute blazer. I think that he is going to be a huge sleeper in this NFL draft. And then last but not least, with our final pick of the draft, we selected Cody Lindenberg, linebacker out of Minnesota. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We walked away with 7 players in this draft, folks. All of them, I believe, would make this roster. Going ahead. I'm going to go post this on X. Hopefully some people will come on in here. Have a conversation with us. And by the way, folks, say, for example, that you want to keep up to date on everything that I ever discuss when it comes into the Buffalo Bills and or my NFL takes. And the best way to engage with me, certainly go on ahead and follow me on X. That's at Real Dan Mitchell. One of the best ways. Anyway, let's go ahead and move over to the live chat and see what everybody has to say about mock draft 1.0. Bill 716. And guys, again, so yesterday we ended up incorporating a format. Say, for example, you have a question. Please begin it with a Q dash, so that way I could easily point out and decipher between a statement / a question. I'm just trying to make sure that the listeners have a wonderful experience over here as well. We have Bill 716. He says you could have taken Golden at 19 if he was still there, then gone Amos 40, then a defensive end at 62. So how is everyone going to feel if Grant can't beat out Daquan for the 1 tech spot? So I have a feeling that Grant, regardless of who we select, and just based off of the behavior that we've seen from Sean McDermott and this defensive coaching staff for quite some time, right? Like, rookies are on a very short leash. So CB2, same thing with defensive tackle, same thing with edge rusher. Do not be surprised in the slightest by the time that training camp wraps up that we're going to say, oh, it looks like Dane Jackson is going to be starting CB2 on week 1. Or it looks like Daquan Jones is going to be starting defensive tackle right there, right? Or it's going to be, look at that. It's Curtis Samuels dominating the snaps, and the wide receiver that we selected in the 1st round is getting maybe 20 to 30% of them. I feel like every single draft selection, and this is just based off of how McDermott typically behaves, it's going to be slow. And we're probably not going to be seeing these guys fully implemented until about midway through the season. So that, unfortunately, is just kind of how it works with Sean, at least from my observations. But, hey, man, listen. When it comes into wide receivers, so I think that we can all agree that, so the way that Joe Brady likes to use them is based off of what they do well, what their gimmick is. And what I think we need is speed. And as great as Matthew Golden was as far as his 40, and that's why I think everybody has fallen in love with Matthew Golden, Thornton is just as fast. He is the 2nd fastest wide receiver in this draft class at a 4.3 40, and he's 6'5". So interesting. Kevin G has come in with a question. What's up, Kevin? Hope all is well. I know this is a repetitive discussion recently, but who would you be looking at running back wise if we traded Cook? I'd probably just roll the dice on some vet that's still a pending free agent, because I am super comfortable with Ray Davis, and I am super comfortable with Ty Johnson being that guy that could largely be our 3rd down back or goal line back. So my vote would be, say, for example, that Cook is gone, which I think there's maybe a 1% chance of that happening, that I'd probably just want to go into free agency and find someone that's still looking for a job, and or just find an undrafted free agent or find somebody in the 6th and or the 7th. I wouldn't spend a pick on a running back this year. I really, really wouldn't, because I feel like our offensive line really brings out the best out of so many different prospects that we have. I probably wouldn't waste the resources on it because we need some things here. We need some things here. All right, we have Menace Chucks has just come in and said, "Hey, Dan, and you need merch that says, if I'm a gambling man." Dude, you know what? There are so many repetitive phrases I say on this show. I feel like I could launch a crazy, crazy merch collection. That's a great idea, man. Listen, guys, send me over your designs for if I'm a gambling man merchandise. Perhaps we will make it onto the store, and maybe I'll give you a royalty. Who knows about that? All right, we have Edgar has come in saying, what about Jalen Royals and Jack Sawyer? Low-key, I think they are quite underrated. I love Jalen Royals. He is next to Matthew Golden. He is my next favorite prospect as far as a wide receiver for someone that I think could reasonably fall to us. Like Royals is number 2. He is so a dream, right? Then it would go Kyle Williams for me. I feel like Isaiah Bond's intriguing, right? But like really based off of his scouting report, like he has so much more development as far as every other part of his game outside of just being a vertical route runner. So I have Royals way ahead of Isaiah Bond in my eyes. Way ahead of him. And I probably even have Kyle Williams over him too. But I do have Isaiah Bond over Dante Thornton, although that Dante Thornton may be the exact same guy, but he's speedy as hell. And that's what Joe Brady is looking for. Jack Sawyer's intriguing too. It's just hard to like suggest or guess where he's going to fall because there's so many conflicting opinions. It's wild. Senke has come in. Senke, what's going on, man? Where does your comfortability come for Ray Davis with Cook selling his house and his brother being rich? And do you see him sitting out? Also, is it safe to say Cook started this run game in Buffalo? So I think that we could take a look at what were some of the pieces that started this Buffalo Bills run game, right? First off, so I think that we have to go with a complete different change of offensive mentality. This Buffalo Bills team hardly ever had any rushing attempts when Ken Dorsey was the offensive coordinator, but then Joe Brady ultimately ended up taking over as well. Next up, so you also need to look at when Aaron Kromer took over as the offensive line coach. And once he finally ended up having all of his pieces together. Kromer is probably, in my opinion, the best offensive line coach in the NFL, bar none. And during that year where Joe Brady took over as offensive coordinator, like it was just the perfect storm, right? Because Kromer had been working with all of the players that were currently on roster. We got Osiris Torrance in the draft that year, who played very well, right? Then Spencer Brown, who many of us were trying to run out of town the year before, had a hell of a damn season, right? Dawkins continued to play very, very well. Had McGovern at the left guard position for the beginning and the final year of Mitch Morse. My confidence level comes and reflecting back and looking at why our run game just became what it was. Sure, Cook definitely did his thing, but a lot of it has everything to do with how good of an offensive line coach that Aaron Kromer is, and how we finally got the personnel right, and how Joe Brady has a propensity to focus on the run game. That's what, in my opinion, truly elevated this Buffalo Bills rushing attack. And obviously Cook's a dog, right? Like he's good. But just look at the advanced analytics for Ray Davis. Like dude's yards per carry are insane. And he had very limited snaps. Kevin G has come in and says, do you think Dorian Williams can take on Milano's role? I've heard he's mostly a Mike linebacker quite a bit. And do we need to look to the draft for a replacement then? So, Kevin, that's a great question for me. Dorian excels in run stopping. His coverage, there's quite a bit that is left to be desired in his coverage game. So I don't think that he would be able to specifically fill the shoes of Matt Milano, right? Like maybe he could, right? But a linebacker, in my opinion, would be better suited for us to target in the early rounds in the 2026 NFL draft. I still would be open for us to select somebody in the 6th round or the 7th round or the 5th round because Buffalo runs nickel, right? So like we typically only call for 2 linebackers out on the field anyway. And you know that we have Milano this year and we also have Bernard. So us targeting a linebacker in the early rounds really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially considering that both of them stay healthy. And then say that Milano gets injured, let's knock on wood and hope that he doesn't, then you would fill in Dorian Williams there. So that's kind of where I'm at. We have Jersey J has come in. Hey, Dan, was going to comment something earlier, but my SGT caught me. How are we looking so far on defense? Well, listen, Jersey J, first off, man, we sincerely appreciate your service to this country, man. Thank you so much, man. I have a special place in my heart for all of the active military members. My brother is a Marine. So all of the respect in the world. Thank you so much for fighting for our country. So the defense, it's pretty clear, man. Like we need a lot of help on the interior. We need a lot of help with the CB2 situation. And then safety is also a sneaky need for us as well, because 3 out of the 4 guys that are on roster are all on 1-year deals. So that's something that needs to be addressed this year for depth purposes and then hopefully development into 2026. So that, and then I think an edge rusher probably would be interesting too, but we shall see. DF is coming with a question. Question, Dan, you killed the mock. Great job. No edge early, though. Thank you, Dwayne. I appreciate that, man. Sincerely, I really, really do. So the edge is interesting for me, right? Because I have a lot of guys that I like. But unfortunately, the way that my board fell, I liked a lot of other guys that were in different positions of need, right? Like, I suppose, hindsight, I could have traded up rather for Trey Amos. I could have went with Landon Jackson, who is pretty interesting there. I do like Olu quite a bit, but like, here's kind of how I look at it, right? Like, yes, as far as building for the future, like we need an edge rusher, but thinking that Bosa and Greg are probably not going to be the centerpieces right on that line that are probably going to get the most amount of snaps for this team. And then, so you also have Epinesa, same thing with Solomon. I'm trying to think who else is on our roster that's more than likely a lock for this team. I feel like that the day one or at least early half of the season contribution for me didn't really seem as much of a top priority. Hence why I waited a little bit longer. But I mean, dude, I know that this mock draft simulator is not so realistic because I do not believe that Olu out of UCLA is going to fall to the 4th. If he somehow does, I'm happy. I am very, very happy about that. Dwayne, my man. Shout out to the mods in here. Shout out to Mike Green. Shout out to Dwayne. Shout out to everybody that keeps the peace in my YouTube live chat, man. Y'all are the real MVPs. Question. Think Dolak goes undrafted. Also brought him up some days ago. Still need you to check out Oregon CB Jabbar Muhammad as a late 6th round. Ryan. Yeah, man, most definitely. I still need to take a look at some of those sleepers at the corner position. So I feel like I'm so enamored with a lot of the corners in the 2nd round, right? That I really haven't given a lot of love to some of the sleepers. But I certainly will. As far as Dolak, maybe 7th, but say that I had to guess, I think he might go undrafted. But I would be more than happy to bring him in. Trust me. We have Deshaun coming in with a statement here. He says, I think the Bills will draft a cornerback with their first because we need a CB2 beside Benford. It doesn't reduce the need for a defensive tackle, but there is a lot of defensive tackles through the 2nd, 3rd, and or the 4th rounds. it's certainly up for debate, right? It's certainly up for debate. So the one thing that I would bring up is that CB2 is certainly important to a lot of us. But then again, like, let's look at what this secondary was able to do, especially in the turnover department last year. Like, we were number one in differential for a long time, right? Like, we were ball hawks out there. We averaged a turnover almost every single game. Several games we got 2 turnovers. And our CB2 last year recorded zero interceptions, 0 fumble recoveries. He contributed nothing. So his coverage grades were bad too, I suppose. It's more than just interceptions. But that's probably what I would bring up when someone's just like, oh, yeah, like, it has to be CB2. I wouldn't be upset, right? Like, say that we traded up to 19 and we selected Will Johnson. Like, you're going to see me clicking my heels. I am going to be equally happy if the Buffalo Bills selected a Will Johnson, a Kenneth Grant, or an Emanwari in the first round. I would be equally as ecstatic. Let's see what Brandon Beane does. Kevin G has come in with a question. Is Palmer enough for an outside threat? Can very well see us not make any more moves at wide receiver. I don't agree with it, but I see it happening. So I think we will in the drafts because, so I look at the roster, and this Buffalo Bills team typically holds 6 wide receivers on roster, one of which may actually have the role as a kick returner. And let's assume that Laviska Shenault is going to beat out Cordington for this role. He's a very good kick returner, Shenault. Very, very good. I'm going to guess that he wins. So he's a wide receiver that's on the roster. Then you have Khalil Shakir, have Keon Coleman going into year 2. You have Curtis Samuel, who we are locked in with the contract. Like, we can't do anything about this contract until next offseason. So he is here. And then we have Josh Palmer. So that's 5 wide receivers. Could we roll with just 5 wide receivers? I suppose. But I think that we still are wanting to fill that 6 wide receiver spot. Yes, I know that we have a couple of guys that are going to be at training camp that were on the practice squad last year that some people might be high on. I forget the guy's name. So Virgil or something like that. But no, I still think that we're going to address a wide receiver. It's just a matter of when. And with that, I think it's still going to be like 3rd, 4th round. It just depends how the board falls. Brent has said, I am not hitting anything until I hear something other than a mid-wit take. I am not hitting anything than a mid-wit take. Brent, dude, I have no idea what you mean. Man. Here goes Dan telling us we don't need a good CB2. Okay, so Brent is frustrated with me saying that we don't need a CB2. I have never said that. I have dedicated videos highlighting several CB2 prospects that we could target in the 2nd round. In fact, on today's episode, again, I selected a CB2 with our 2nd overall pick. So I'm not particularly sure what you are yapping about, fool. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, Bills Mafia J718. What's up, Dan? Happy Friday. Hope true is it this report that Cook removed all of Bills content from his social media? If so, I think he is a goner. He's showing Diggs tendencies. We should move on. So I don't particularly think that he is because he has no leverage whatsoever. He has zero leverage. Because number one, he is under contract for the Buffalo Bills this year. He's set to make $5.2 million. He has only ever made $4 million in his NFL career. Some of us could say, oh, his brother's rich. His brother's not getting much work anymore, okay? Like, he probably needs to take care of his own family at this point. And that's kind of a weird, like, statement for me, right? He could demand a trade, but here's the thing. He could demand a trade, but, like, what team is going to send over any quality capital, right, and bring a running back that clearly wants $15 million a year where they could just go into the draft and find an absolute stud and just make it happen. So he has no leverage. We have Carvin Joseph. If we stay at 30, unless if Kenneth Grant is available, I think we go cornerback. And how do you feel about prospect Landon Jackson or Lane Jackson? I feel like you mean Landon Jackson. I love Landon Jackson, but like he would need to be a second round guy. It's us trading up specifically. We have Joseph Gonzalez. If Emin Wari and Kenneth Grant are there in the first round, who would you pick? Man, y'all know that I love Emin Wari. God, I love Emin Wari, but I would go Kenneth Grant, dude. Like, there are very few prospects in the first round that I would select over Grant. Maybe Will Johnson. Say that there was some world where Will Johnson and Kenneth Grant, so we're sitting there staring me in the face, I would probably have a very difficult decision to make. But I would be equally as thrilled. Bill 716 has come in and says, Rasul Douglas had the worst season he's played since 2020. He was getting burned a lot last season, so having a CB that can hold his own and go behind reduces the strain on Benford and the rest of the defense. So I feel like people are so mistaking that I'm saying that CB2 is not important. It is. I'm just saying that a quality one-tech defensive tackle is far more important. Because what was, in my opinion, the biggest issue with the Buffalo Bills was stopping third down conversions last year. I don't care how good your secondary is. If the quarterback is back there having all the time in the world, eventually your DBs are going to get gassed and or the quarterback is going to find an open man. It's just how it is. And we were so inconsistent with getting to the quarterback, specifically from the interior. Ed Oliver was wildly inconsistent. And we have said this time in and time again, that Ed Oliver is not the kind of guy that's going to elevate a defensive line. He is the type of guy that is going to be elevated. But when he is elevated, that's when the production comes. So, in my opinion, Rasul Douglas getting burned, I'd say occasionally, right? And in the grand scheme of things, it certainly was occasionally, right? Like, whatever. A way larger problem in my eyes was giving QBs all the time in the world to find an open man for third down conversions. That is why I prioritize a Kenneth Grant, right? Or that is why I prioritize defensive line this year above anybody over the secondary. Again, like I have said, I have not ever said that CB2 is not important. In fact, I even drafted Trey Amos in the second round with our second overall pick. It's all about how the board falls to me. So what I'm trying to say is what I prioritize. And the biggest issue with this defense last year, bar none, make no mistake, was our defensive line play. Kevin G, Dan, and you have 5 snaps at running back to get 10 yards. Thankfully, you have the Bills line. Can you make it happen? Kevin, fun fact, I benched 315. I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. I can. 5 snaps at running back to get 10 yards. 10 is crazy. 10 is absolutely insane. 10 is insane. So does it need to be between the A and the B gap? Or would I be able to go out to the edge? So on a pitch or something like that. Say that it was on a pitch, yeah, 5 yards I could do. But like right between the A and the B gap, I think I'd be able to get 2 yards. 2. Easy. Let's go. All right. We have Evan Dodd has just come in with $5. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Linebacker Jackson Woodard out of UNLV could be a Milano replacement. If we can grab him in the 4th or the 5th, a Kiko Alonso ball hawk type. I'm going to have to tell you what, Evan, I am going to have to take a look at him. Again, like I said, man, I have been enamored with particular players in position groups of need in particular rounds, right? Like, as many of you know, I have prioritized defensive tackle for us, then CB2, then wide receiver. So I think, and so it's almost unfair because like what I'm doing is I'm just looking at prospects that are within a specific round based off of where I think the Bills should be looking for a player of that need, of that position. And I haven't had a chance to take a look at Jackson Woodard, but I am going to have to. A Kiko Alonso ball hawk type. Man, who remembers Kiko Alonso over here? We have Deshaun. Hey, Dan, would you rather move up to the 20s in the first round or move down and get multiple second round picks with a third round pick? I'd probably want to move up a little bit for our guy rate in the first, right? Because like we have a shit ton of picks. 10. It's crazy. Like we are not using all of them. I think that with the arsenal of selections that we do have, it's more than likely going to be used to move up several times. If we move down at all, it's going to be closer into the middle round so that we could potentially maybe get a third. Or maybe the board is not as ideal for us right in the fourth. But as far as trading down, I could see it as a possibility, but not from the first round. Bill 716. I'm not saying a defensive tackle isn't important or that CB is not important, but I am saying they're equally important. But to me, they go hand in hand. Can't have one without the other. Very, very true. Very, very true. I can appreciate that. Donnie Yobs has just said, I just saw your first 2 draft picks, was late. Grant and Amos would be amazing. I wouldn't even care what we would do after that. Those are easily 2 great picks. Team is much better after that. Donnie, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. I do have a feeling that Donnie is very late to the show, but hopefully by the time that it's all said and done, he sees me read his comment. What a dude. All right, we have Jarrell Ross has come in with a question. And the last question I think that I would do here. Jarrell, what's going on, man? Will the Buffalo Bills get Ashton Genty at pick number 30? Jarrell, man, let me tell you what. Listen, I think so one of the biggest trends recently has been, is Buffalo going to be looking for a potential James Cook replacement if he tries to force his way out of Buffalo, right? Number one, so I think that Ashton Genty, he's going to go, I think, easily top 10. I have a feeling he's going to be a Las Vegas Raider with pick number 8. But like, rest be assured, he's going to be single digits. So at 30, probably not. And as far as selecting a running back, if, for example, James Cook is not on this roster, but I'm not even particularly sure that there's more than a 1% chance that that's going to come to fruition. But no, I probably wouldn't. Probably wouldn't. All right, guys, I'm going to go on ahead and I am going to wrap up today's show. I sincerely appreciate that. And so, Dwayne, I see you, man. I see you. And so I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Da Mafia Report. For those of you listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I highly recommend that if you enjoyed today's show, that you leave me a kind rating and review and tell your friends. And if, for example, you want to be a part of the Q&A segment, highly recommend that you check me out on YouTube, Dan Mitchell, where you can be a part of these shows. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition, and we'll see you perhaps later this afternoon. Deuces.